UFC 299, O'Malley versus Vera 2. We have one of the greatest cards of all time coming up this week, and I'm super stoked. It is taking place in Miami, and you're really not going to see this much talent all on the same card very often. Of course, we'll see it again for the next card in UFC 300, but, I mean, it definitely is an argument to be made for this card being better than 300, but let's not waste any time. Let's get right into it here. We're starting off in the flyweight division. It is Joanne Wood taking on Maryna Moroz. Wood is the plus 185 underdog. Moroz is the minus 225 favorite. I like the value of Joanne a lot here. Moroz is coming off of back-to-back losses, and she's looked kind of slow as of late. Wood definitely has her fair share of losses as of recently as well, but I think they were against the better fighters. She took on Taila Santos, Alexa Grassos. I expect a kickboxing match here, and I think that benefits Joanne Wood. I think she wins a decision. We go to the men's flyweight division next up for a fight between CJ Vergara and Asu Almabayev. Vergara is the plus 425 underdog, with Almabayev being the 6-1 favorite. Definitely a lot of value to be had with Vergara here. He's got the UFC experience advantage. Almabayev only has one fight in the UFC where he did find a finish. These Kazakhstanis kind of have taken the UFC by storm. Definitely in some of these smaller weight classes as well, especially. I think Asu should be able to handle CJ pretty easily on the ground. We've seen holes in CJ's grappling games kind of get exposed by guys like Tatsuro Taira. Almabayev, this might be only his second fight in the UFC, but he's got loads of experience. He's got 20 career fights, and I think he wins a submission victory here. Next fight up is a heavyweight matchup between Robelis Despaigne and Josh Parisian. Despaigne is the minus 370 favorite, with Parisian being the plus 280 underdog. Speaking of experience, Despaigne does not have a lot of it. He only has 4 career fights, and just about over 5 minutes of octagon time total. But it's the heavyweight division, and if there's any division where experience doesn't mean quite as much, it is definitely with these big boys. It does not take much. Despaigne is an athletic freak. He's 6'6", 6'7", and has that touch you, he's got the NyQuil in his hands. He'll just put you right to sleep. So I think with someone that big and athletic, I don't really care about the inexperience. I mean, he does have some combat experience, being a Taekwondo practitioner, Olympian. It's a bit concerning it's taken him this long to make the switch to MMA. I mean, I think he's coming up on his late 30s, 36, 37 years old, I want to say. But he's still, I mean, you look at him and he's still got all those, twitchy athletic genes. I think he gets around 1K here of Parisian and makes it look easy. Next fight is a middleweight fight between Michel Pereira and Michal Oleksiejczuk. Pereira is the minus 150 favorite. Oleksiejczuk is the plus 125 underdog. Pereira made his middleweight debut in his last fight versus Andre Petrosky. He had spent most of his career up to that point, barely making weight at welterweight. I mean, I think he was pretty good about making weight, but that was just a freaky weight cut to be putting himself through. He's had 40 career fights. I think it was time for him to make a change, and the debut at middleweight looked really good. Got a KO over Petrosky, and I think he's got much more finesse to his game than Oleksiejczuk, who moves forward and is super aggressive, and I love his fight style. He finds a lot of finishes by just overwhelming his opponents, but he kind of leaves himself open, which I think Pereira will be able to take care of. I think he wins a KO, catching Oleksiejczuk coming in recklessly and putting him out. Next fight is a light heavyweight match between Jan Cutelaba and Philipe Lins. Cutelaba is the minus 125 favorite. Lins is the plus 105 underdog. I like Philipe Lins. He's on a 3 or 4 fight win streak here. He's got a good amount of power in his hands, and I'm not a big fan of Cutelaba. I mean, his last win was versus Tanner Boser. a guy who I'm not quite sure is still even in the UFC at this point. Lins is the harder puncher by far, and I really think that's all the difference I need to see with this matchup. I think Lins wins this one by KO. Next fight, and here's where it starts getting really good, is a bantamweight matchup between Pedro Munhoz and Phillips. Munhoz is the plus 175 underdog. Kyler is the minus 210 favorite. Pedro is a super tough draw, and I think for Kyler especially, this is going to be a really difficult matchup. Kyler wants to, I mean, he's pretty good all around, but a lot of his work has been done on the feet as of late, and Pedro has shown an ability to, to just win rounds on the feet. He knows how to land. He knows how to take a punch so it doesn't look like he's taking too much damage, and he's quick, and he just can score points really well. Kyler's a guy who is super intriguing prospect, lost the one fight to Rolian Paiva, but is 4-1 in his last 5. But it's just kind of been weird vibes from him after getting popped for PEDs, I believe. Munhoz, I mean, he fought a super close decision loss to Chito Vera, one that I think, despite obviously Chito doing way more damage, I think you could make somewhat of an argument of Munhoz winning that one on the cards. I think he wins a decision here. It's just about time he gets another win, and I think he gets it done versus Kyler. Next fight is a lightweight matchup between Mateusz Gamrot and Rafael dos Anjos. Gamrot is the minus 475 favorite. RDA is the plus 350 underdog. This line is kind of crazy. There's no question that RDA has the tools to beat Gamrot. We've seen sort of the blueprint on how to beat Gamrot before from Dariush. I mean, he stuffed all the takedowns and really dominated a lot of those grappling exchanges and won that fight, made a big statement winning that fight. And RDA is coming in with that similar BJJ background. That being said, I think Gamrot's motor is going to be the real difference maker here. That's his best asset. And I can see this one being a super close fight going into the last couple of minutes in the third round, and a Gamrot takedown sort of sealing it. So Gamrot by decision is the pick there. Next fight is a flyweight matchup between Katlyn Cerminara, formerly known as Chikagian, and Maycee Barber. Jeez. Katlyn is the plus 175 underdog, and Barber is the minus 210 favorite. Maycee is giving up a lot of experience here. Katlyn's had the title fight experience. She's got something like 15 or 16 fights in the UFC under her belt, so she's kind of seen it all. She's been in there with everyone. You're not going to catch her by surprise. And Katlyn's just super solid. Maycee's only 25 years old, but she does have a good amount of experience herself with 10 UFC fights to her name, and so she got going really young. So she's kind of accelerated her progression that way. Coming off of a huge KO win over Amanda Ribas, made a big statement in that win. I think she's got the power advantage here, which is going to be the big separator in this matchup for me. I think Barber lands the more damaging shots and finds a way to bloody up Katlyn, and the visuals alone will help her get the nod from the judges. So Barber by decision is going to be the pick here. She's young, she's really quick, has good striking, but this one should be really interesting. Next fight, which is the main event, the final fight on our prelim cards. It is Curtis Blaydes taking on Jailton Almeida. Blaydes is the minus 110. Well, it's a pick 'em here. They're both minus 110. Flip a coin. Jailton is... Curtis Blaydes really is Jailton's first heavyweight opponent with a grappling background. Blaydes does have that wrestling pedigree. And, I've been saying for a while, I'm waiting for Jailton's size, smaller size to catch up to him. He's a guy who, I believe his Contender Series fight was at 205, and he's just slowly been increasing in size as the years go by. He's not, he's not a small guy by any means, but Blaydes is a legitimate 260-pounder. A guy, you know, who gets up to that upper limit of the heavyweight limit and is pretty athletic at that size. So that being said, I think Almeida's grappling approach is going to be really tough to pull off against Blaydes here, especially when he's not making, you know, everyone knows what Almeida's going for. He's looking for the takedown. If he's, you know, throwing a strike, he's looking for a takedown right after it. So I think he might end up telegraphing a takedown that way. I can see Curtis Blaydes reversing a takedown and ending up on top and sort of just winning the fight that way, out grappling. And I think that a size and strength difference is going to be pretty apparent here. I have Blaydes winning a decision. Our first fight on the main card is a bantamweight fight between Petr Yan and Song Yadong. Yan is the -120 favorite, with Yadong being a +100 underdog. Man, Yan has had a really tough go of it really late. People are throwing the washed word out there. I just really do not see it. Visually, he looks almost as good as he always looked as a champ. I mean, let's be honest, that O'Malley fight, you're not coming away from that fight being like, oh, Jan's washed. I mean, he dropped O'Malley, hurt him worse than O'Malley's ever been hurt before and probably has been hurt since. He still has the power. He still has the quickness that he always had. I think he's just had a run of tough matchups with Aljamain Sterling, with Moroz and his gas tank. So that stuff I don't see being an issue versus Song Yadong here, who's going to want to strike. Yadong is definitely, you know, he's an athletic freak. He is super quick, big for bantamweight. I mean, he says he's going to get up to like 165, 170 pounds by the time he gets in the cage. Absolutely ridiculous, but Petr Yan, he was the champ for a reason. He's, you know, I think this style of fight versus Yadong suits him much better than some of his more recent matchups. I think he wins these striking exchanges and wins a decision here. Yeah, the guy went to college for this. He's got a master's in boxing or whatever it's called. So, yeah, I think he shows just a skill difference in that fight. Next fight up is a welterweight fight between Gilbert Burns and Jack Della Maddalena. Burns is the +140 underdog. JDM is the -170 favorite. JDM is 6-0 in the UFC, but his stock seems to have gone down based off his last couple of fights. Had the, you know, sort of, not, you know, low-profile win over Kevin Holland. I think people were expecting to see more out of him in that fight. And then, of course, before then, had the fight versus Basil Hafez, where he nearly got submitted and just did not handle the grappling of Hafez well at all. His boxing, I still think at his best. I think his boxing is pretty much second to none at welterweight. His hands are so legit. He knows how to work the body as well as the head. So working his way up top and really just confusing his opponents that way. But the guy is a fish out of water on the ground, and I just don't think you can have that glaring of a weakness versus Gilbert Burns and expect to win. Burns does, you know, he can get dropped by a lot, and, you know, we saw him get dropped a few times by Hamzat, but that's Hamzat. I mean, super powerful striker in his own right. I think if Burns finds his way on top, it's a wrap. I'm taking Burns to win this one by submission. Next fight is another welterweight matchup between Kevin Holland and Michael Venom Page. Holland is the -135 favorite. MVP is the +115 underdog. I think Kevin Holland is the more talented guy here. He's younger, more explosive, got more power on his shots, at least just in his hands. No question. I mean, Holland is uber athletic. And he's a guy who, you know, I think if he committed the move to welterweight earlier and really showed that he's about winning a belt and not about, you know, taking the money fights, which, don't get me wrong, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And, you know, more power to him. I think he's very happy with the decisions he's made, but those decisions are kind of what sway me to ride with a guy like MVP, where I think Kevin Holland has it in his toolbox to take this fight on the ground and really make a difference there and mix in the grappling and the clinch, but it just doesn't feel like Holland is interested in that. He's a showman. He's gonna want to stand with MVP, and I think that's just a tough fight. I see a lot of parallels between the Holland Wonderboy fight, where it felt like Holland had a couple opportunities to mix in the grappling, and he said, screw that, let's put on a show. So respect him for it, but I think he's going to fight MVP's fight, and MVP will win a decision. Our co-main event is Dustin Poirier versus Benoit Saint Denis. Poirier is the plus 180 underdog, and BSD is the minus 220 favorite. You gotta love BSD's approach to fighting. He's just an animal in there. Total psychopath, almost street fight approach, and it's really worked for him. He's on a 5-fight win streak, all finishes. His resume definitely isn't the greatest. His highest profile win is probably Matt Frivola. I mean, he has the win over one of the Bonfim brothers, where he just dominated him, but he's a guy who's, he's not that experienced. Like, he's not going to have the skill and finesse of Poirier, who's, super clean boxing. And if this turns into like a one-dimensional, boxing match, I think Poirier runs away with it. But BSD is just so erratic. Poirier's coming off of that KO loss. Who knows what condition his chin is in. And he's kind of in limbo with his career. Like, what's he really fighting for? It's before that KO loss to Gaethje, I don't think he ever really would have considered taking a fight versus, a guy beneath him in the rankings. A guy, like, it just doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. He's fought Conor McGregor, for crying out loud. So, it's just, where are you really at, Poirier? He's made the money. He's, despite not having the belt, really, he's kind of reached the highest level of the sport that you really can reach. BSD is just going to be way hungrier. I think he finds a finish here in, crazy fashion. There's no question Poirier will make it super interesting, and I can see him catching BSD a couple times, and BSD needing time to get accustomed to like the jab of Poirier and the slick boxing, but I think he does find a finish in the end. And our main event is a bantamweight matchup between Sugar Sean O'Malley and Marlon Chito Vera. Sean is the minus 290 favorite. Chito is the underdog here, plus, where is he at? Coming up now. Let's see. Chito is the plus 220 underdog per ESPN. Chito coming off of that win versus Pedro Munhoz that I touched on a little earlier. Close fight. Typical Chito fashion, started out really slow. By the end of the fight, he was starting to put it on him. But he really ran the risk in that 3-round format of losing on the cards, despite, really finding his rhythm towards the later minutes of that fight. And, before that, he got absolutely dominated by Corey. I mean, people don't seem to be talking about it, but that was, it was a terrible performance by Chito. And I don't know if that's a testament to Corey's, just being levels ahead of him that night, or if it's, Chito just, not really wanting it that much, or it could be a little bit of both. I don't know. But, there's no doubt that Chito is benefiting a lot from his history with Sean. He's got that victory over Sean with the leg kick that shut Sean's nerve off, and, it was a super close fight coming up to that point. I'm not going to call it a fluke because there's a 1-to-1 relationship between Sean O'Malley getting kicked and his leg giving out. So I think it's disingenuous to call it a fluke, but it definitely is, you know, not very replicable, and you don't see it happen very often. So this fight's going to be way different. Sean, I think, has just looked a lot better as of late than Chito has, all things considered. And that slow start approach, it works against, you know, Dominic Cruz, who's a bit older, you know, Rob Font, these guys who are, you know, let's face it, not as good as Sean O'Malley, and more importantly, not as dangerous as Sean O'Malley. If Chito gets behind on the cards, and he has to start selling out for a finish, that's going to spell trouble for him, because Sean is an excellent counter puncher, and he's got, you know, some of the best, you know, some of the hardest punches in the bantamweight division, if not the hardest puncher. I would probably say that he hits the hardest out of anyone in that division. Yeah, Sean, you know, it's the redemption arc for Sean. He's called himself undefeated, but, you know, now he has a chance to actually right that wrong before. I think Sean O'Malley wins the decision here. Chito's a guy who's impossible to put away. You know, I don't know if he's ever been KO'd, but and I think that's due in part to his, you know, he's got a great chin, and also he's just very defensively responsible. He's not going to leave him, you know, he's not going to leave himself open to taking a lot of shots, even if he has to sort of, if he's behind on the cards. He just doesn't expose himself that much. I think O'Malley wins a decision here, and we see a pretty dominant, but perhaps might not be the most exciting fight in our main event. But with that, that is the breakdown. Like and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and we'll catch you on the next one. UFC 300 coming up. Gonna be crazy. Peace.